Remember playing Counter-Strike, desperately waiting for that third round so you could afford AK or M4? I certainly do. Unfortunately, we aren't here today to talk about Counter-Strike, but I show you how weapons like those stand out and how to create that feeling in your own game. This is your no bullshit guide to weapon balancing. Welcome everybody to Weapon Balancing 101 from concept to implementation. A talk with practical information and real life examples. Today, we are focusing on multiplayer weapon balancing. Raise your hand if you never balanced a weapon before. Alright, welcome. This talk is just for you. For those who have done it before, I hope you will learn something new or even teach me something new. A lot of people think that weapon balancing is just tweaking numbers in Excel. And sure, that's part of it. But by the end of this talk, you will see there is way more than just that. Now, I can't balance the weapons for you. I mean, I could if you paid me, but I show you how exactly it's done because I learned it the hard way. My name is Matej Dubec and I work at Bohemia Interactive as a lead game designer on a game called Vigor. For those who don't know, Vigor is the game I will be showing you examples from today, so let me briefly introduce it to you. Vigor is surviving, soon to be 6 years old, free-to-play, multiplayer, looter shooter set in post-apocalyptic Norway. And this is a Norway flag, if you didn't know. Vigor was initially released with about 40 weapons divided into 8 categories and 6 rarities with limited planning of expansion. But we expanded the arsenal anyway. And let's be honest, at one point we were just adding guns to Vigor. No clear plan, no strong identity, just more guns. Over time, categories and rarities started to blur. Weapons didn't feel distinct anymore. It all started blending together. So last year we hit reset. We rebalanced everything from the ground up. And like you, today we are going back in time to do it all over again together. Vigor has 77 weapons. Today we are not balancing knives and crossbow, so we have 61 weapons to balance. That seems kinda overwhelming, doesn't it? So where do we start? We start by simplifying it. Forget about all specific weapons altogether and think only about weapon categories. It's much easier to find differences among 6 weapon categories than among all those weapons. Okay, great. We went from 61 weapons to balance to 6 weapon categories. What's next? Here's the plan. We start with the vision, basically why the weapon category should be in the game in the first place. Then we define attributes that will bring that vision to life. After that, we put down some real values, and that's the spreadsheet part. And after that, we will play test to see if it actually works. So let's get to it. What player experience should a weapon category create? What player style does it serve? This is where the balance begins. But not by comparing weapons, but by making them distinct. Each weapon category should introduce a distinct playstyle. Do this, distinct playstyle. Don't aim for parity, aim for identity. And how does that vision actually look like? Just a wall of text like this. Long, short, doesn't matter. What matters is the clarity on how the weapon should be used. Do this for each weapon category. This is your foundation. And trust me, it will be important later. If you are using real-world categories like SMGs or assault rifles, players will have certain expectations on how that weapons should behave. And that behavior is defined by attributes. There's plenty of them, so I will walk you through only the most important ones. The first one is base damage. It's the fundamental power of each weapon before any modifiers. As the projectiles flies away from the muzzle, damage usually decreases with the distance. Which brings us to our second attribute, which is damage over distance. It's defined by a curve. Some games use linear fall-off, as you can see on this image behind me. Some other games use sawtooth-like curves, as you can see over here. Vigor uses a hybrid because we wanted a bit of realism, but also clear and defined ranges for each weapon category. Next attribute is rate of fire. It defines how fast a weapon shoots, usually in rounds per minute. Another attribute is spread. Spread controls bullet deviation. It adds randomness, so not each shot lands in the center. It simulates things like movement or shooting too fast. And spread can be static or dynamic. As you can see, the crosshair expands while the character is shooting. Next attribute is weapon's kick, aka recoil. It is how much the crosshair jumps after each shot. Some games, like Counter-Strike, use fixed spray patterns. They are predictable and skill-based. Some other games, like Call of Duty or Battlefield, use randomized recoil, which feels more natural. Vigor uses it too. It can be achieved by shaking the camera or moving the crosshair directly. The last attribute I'm going to mention is ergonomics. It's a term we used in Vigor. It affects how heavy or light the weapon feels in players' hands. It influences stamina drain, movement speed, or how fast animations like weapon switching or aiming play. Great. We have our vision. We know which attributes we will be using to balance our weapons. Finally, it's Excel time. And by the way, if you don't know what spreadsheet specific means, it means that we are going to give each weapon attribute a specific value. Remember when I said vision would be important? Now it's important. It's time we extract attributes from the vision. Let's take a look at this SMG vision example, and let's take a look at the highlighted parts. It says that SMGs should be great for close to mid-range combat. This can be achieved by modifying a damage over distance curve that will have mild drop-off on close and mid-range. SMGs should also shoot quickly, and I believe this one is obvious, as this can be achieved by setting a high rate of fire. At this point, I believe you understand the process, so it's time you guys help me out. We will go through the highlighted text. I will always give you 3 options to choose from, like 3 attributes to choose from, and your job is to raise your hand if you think that the mentioned behavior can be achieved through modifying that attribute. Okay, so SMGs should cover a large volume in front of the player. What attribute do you think could represent this? Raise your hand if you think it's recoil. All right. Raise your hand, it can be achieved by spread. Okay. And lastly, raise your hand if you think it's ergonomics. All right. This can be achieved by modifying spread, as spread controls bullet deviation. Let's try another one. Active, move fast, and flank. What attribute do you think could represent this? Raise your hand if you think it's base damage. Yeah, that's what I thought. Nice. Raise your hand if you think it's ergonomics. All right, great. And raise your hand if you think it's recoil. Yeah. And as you correctly answered, this can be achieved by setting high ergonomics, as it controls stamina drain and movement speed. Let's try one more, and this one is a little bit tricky. Easy to handle. What attribute do you think could represent this? Raise your hand if you think it's recoil. Raise your hand if you think it's spread. And raise your hand if you think it's ergonomics. Yeah, as I said, it's a little bit tricky, as it can be achieved by both setting low recoil or high ergonomics, ideally a combination. You all did great. Thank you all for the participation in this quiz. But let me finish it off real quick. The SMG should also be like not very powerful. I believe this one is again obvious, as it can be achieved by setting low base damage. And lastly, it should not perform very good on a long distance, which again can be achieved by modifying damage over distance curve. Once you do this for each weapon category, you will end up with a table like this. From here on, this table is our reference point. It's much easier to work with and faster, and it defines and it gives us a clear overview of the whole balance. No weapon category excels in everything, and that's exactly what we want. One clearly stands out: revisit the vision. Once we have done this, it's time to start balancing specific weapons. Let's start by selecting one weapon from each weapon category. A representative that clearly reflects the vision. In Vigor, we used high rarity weapons. Why start with the best? Because if you start with the worst, you will feel tempted to make them better than they should be, and you end up with everything overpowered, more like boring gunplay, I would say. This is kind of specific if you have weapons divided into rarities. And once this is done, comes the real work. And this is the part where I can't help you much. You got to feel it. Fire up the editor, jump into the test range, and start setting numbers and start shooting. And start shooting a lot. Don't chase the perfect values right away. Go through each attribute and find a reasonable range that clearly reflects the vision. The ranking table is the guide, but this is all about trial and error. Don't overthink it. Try a number, see how it feels, and adjust it. Test, test, tweak, repeat, until it feels right. Once we have the weapon range is done, start setting final values for those representatives. And once that work is done, we will end up with a table like this. This is where the vision became real. This table represents each weapon category in numbers. Let's take assault rifles as an example. A weapon that has only the best values in that category. Still an assault rifle. And it's the same with the weapon that has only the worst values. Still an assault rifle, or like a weapon that we would classify as an assault rifle. A very bad one, but an assault rifle nevertheless. We also set the final values for the first 6 representatives. These are our anchors. They are vision-driven examples, and we will use them to shape everything else around them. But to balance around them properly, we need some evaluation metrics. We use 3 core metrics to evaluate weapons. The first one is optimal time to kill. It's the best possible weapon's performance in ideal conditions. The best possible weapon's performance assuming perfect aim and no misses. The second is effective damage per second. It's the average damage output over time that factors in reloads, magazine size, and other real-world use. It reflects reliable performance in less than ideal conditions, like surprise encounters or chain fights. And the last metrics is ease of use. It's a subjective rating of how hard it is to reach the weapon's full potential. It accounts for things like recoil, spread, animation speed, and other handling quirks. It's used to compare weapons that play in the similar intended use, especially similar engagement ranges. don't compare weapons that has completely different roles. Compare weapons that play in the same space. For example, like SMGs with shotguns and not SMGs with sniper rifles. An important thing to remember is that no weapon category should dominate in all three metrics. Let's take AK-47 as an example from Counter-Strike. It has a very good optimal time to kill. It has a decently high effective damage per second, but it's balanced because it has very low ease of use due to high recoil and inaccuracy. All right, we translated our attributes, or we translated our vision into attributes. The attributes are good on paper, but it doesn't mean that the weapons are balanced. Or more importantly, that they feel balanced. And this is where the playtesting comes in. During playtesting, don't be afraid to make changes. And don't limit yourself to just tweak numbers. Sometimes the issue isn't with the attributes, but in how the weapon feels. In Wolfenstein Enemy Territory, two weapons had identical stats, but players consistently performed better with one. Why? Because it sounded more powerful. So the devs changed the firing sound of the other weapon, and it fixed it. In Vigor, we noticed that players are using full auto sniper rifles as assault rifles. So we removed the crosshair and forced players to scope in, and it worked. If something doesn't work or feel right, change it. All right, so far we went through full balancing process, but only applied it to 6 concrete weapons. In Vigor, that's just the beginning. We still have more than 50 weapons to go, to balance. So how do we balance the rest? If your game has weapon subcategories like Vigor does, you simply repeat the process. Each subcategory should introduce, again, a unique playstyle. But stay within the vision and attribute ranges of the parent category. Once subcategory representatives are defined, it's time for the final step. Remember when I said the representatives are anchors? Well, now it's important. They are the standard for each weapon category and subcategory. Balance all remaining weapons against these anchors. There is no need to balance weapons across weapon categories or subcategories anymore, because that work is already done. All right, let's go over everything one more time. To balance weapons properly, you need to start with a clear vision. Then, you need to define attributes that will bring that vision to life. After that, you translate vision into numbers. And finally, you playtest and adjust. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, the full process of balancing weapons from concept to implementation. Thank you for your attention. I think we have some time for questions. So if you are curious about something, don't hesitate to ask. Also, if you are more interested into this topic and would like to dive deeper, I wrote a more detailed blog post about it, so scan the QR code behind me to check it out. Also, if you don't have questions now, but might have later, feel free to write me an email, connect on LinkedIn, or we can chat at the bar or at the party after the talk. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks for the talk and about the anchors and like selecting the baseline for the balancing. You said that you use like the best weapon in the category in order to not make everything overpowered, which is understandable. But I'm wondering because, for example, like on Cyberpunk, we did it the other way around because it's kind of we don't want like the base level. Usually, the lowest level of power weapon is what player will get first, at least in RPGs. And we don't want this like first weapon you get to feel like bad to use, right? Because this is what player will get first. And if it's not good to use, if it doesn't feel good to use right away, it might like discourage the player from using this weapon or weapon category at all. So what do you think about this? Like, how do we make our baseline weapons like the basically like lowest quality or lower tier already good to use, and then we go up from there? What do you think about this?
Okay, the way why we did this way in Vigor is because we are not creating new weapons, but like rebalancing the existing ones. We also have weapons divided into rarities. So basically, the best rarity should be the weapon everyone want to use, right? Because it's the best one. So we pick those weapons to as a baseline because that's the ideal gameplay we want to achieve, right? So everything else should not feel like that easy to use, and Vigor is a multiplayer game, so the players basically have all the weapons available right away. Let's say. Also, we give the players the best weapons at the start, so he kinda knows how it feels, how it's good, and then after a while, since the extraction shooter, he dies, he loses the gear, he should feel or like crawl for the best weapons to get. So that was like the idea behind it. But yeah, does that answer your question or no?
Partially, yeah, right, but it's a little bit different genre. I'm like thinking in general, right, how to approach it so we don't like we ideally get both like weapons which players want to get and they're like those ideal or better without being OP, but also this like low level baseline is not something as bad that players don't want to use it at all, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Uh, yeah, it's true. So I would probably uh, also start somewhere in the middle if it was this case. So yeah, this was I would say specific to our case.
Thank you.
Thanks for the talk. Do you use any automation for the testing, like letting bots shoot each other and see what weapon is the best?
No, not really. We do it like manually. We had playtest. We use some analytics to evaluate it, but no, we didn't.
How much time do you usually spend on playtesting it?
I think the full rebalancing process took us like 6 weeks, I would say, and then we are like re-evaluating it till today, since like players feedback, analytics, and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Hello, Matej, and thank you for the talk. In the beginning, you mentioned that you use some kind of realism as Vigor uses real-life, real-world weapons. I was wondering if you took that into account that, say, SMGs can come into 22 caliber, 9mm, or 5.7s. Did that come into the evaluation process? Or was it just something you did feelingly a bit? Thanks.
It's something we did feelingly. I mean, Vigor is free to play and is trying to like reach the wide audience. So it's not something niche like Arma where everything has to be realistic. And even though all weapons in Vigor are based on real weapons, it's still like a post-apocalyptic fiction. So it's kind of simplified. And what I meant by saying like the players have a certain expectation, what I meant by that is that when you play it, I don't know, with like SMG, you probably wouldn't expect it in a different game to behave like a shotgun, basically. So that's what I meant by that.
All right. Thank you very much, Matej.
Hello, thank you for the talk. I wanted to ask, you said Vigor has been around for how many years?
It will be 6 in
6.
August.
Yeah. Have you ever had the situation where the player base formed, I'm going to use the word meta or something alongside it, using one weapon a way you didn't want it to be used, or a category or a behavior where it was, or rather, and how did you approach it? Were you okay with changing it so it wasn't as dominant, or was it a sort of situation where you didn't want to kill your darling because the weapon functioned as it did, but it was maybe an issue in, not an issue, but maybe more reliant on the level design? I'm thinking larger fields means assault rifles or sniper rifles are more common, but you didn't figure that they'd be as dominant because they work as intended, but they're just used too much, so to speak. Or did you not encounter something like this?
Yeah, we did. Actually, we had a very powerful meta in Vigor, which was everybody was using machine guns because they were like super strong and there were almost no drawbacks to it, I would say. So everybody was using that, and we weren't satisfied with this meta and how the weapons work, basically. So we changed it, players adjusted to it, and I would say most of the community was pleased by the change because they hated the meta. But, you know, at least those, yeah.
Thank you.
It was really interesting to see that you had some values to compare weapons outside of the attributes, like the time to kill in the best scenario. Did you, how did you find those? Did you create them? How did you make them? Is it some generally no way to compare weapons, and did you use it also to compare the categories, or was it more used to compare different weapons inside of a category?
Yeah, it always goes to like comparing weapons only that play in the similar space. So we were mostly comparing those. Yeah, if that answers the question.
Definitely, thank you.
Okay, sorry, we don't have much more time, so please reach.
We can talk after the talk
Yes.
if you wish.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.